An incredible, almost unbelievable story unfolded around the only daughter of a Qatari billionaire. Raised in opulence and luxury, she was a child who got whatever she wanted, did whatever she pleased. But one day, her behavior changed so drastically, it was as if she were a completely different person. Seeing their daughter's transformation, her parents were stunned. At first, they asked in anger, "Is poverty contagious?" But what was even more shocking was that this entire change happened in the short span of 3 years she spent living in the United States. What on earth did she encounter in America? And what could have possibly changed her so completely? Let's now listen to this incredible story. No limo, I'm taking the train. When I saw the text message, I was so shocked I nearly dropped my phone. The train, here in Doha, and from my own daughter, Fatima? Honey, has Fatima gone mad? I thrust the phone at my husband. We were waiting for our daughter in the private VIP lounge of Hamad International Airport in Doha. This was her first time home in 3 years. An attendant stood by with a magnificent bouquet of flowers. A black limousine was parked and waiting just outside. Everything was perfect, and then we received this absurd message. At first, my husband was speechless, then he let out a laugh. She must be joking. But then, another message came through. I'm serious. I don't need things like limousines anymore. I'm taking the metro home. I nearly collapsed right there. Our daughter was going to take public transportation, alone, without a bodyguard? The Doha Metro is for ordinary people. It must be America, I said to my husband. We never should have sent her to that country. My husband sighed. Let's go home. There's no point in waiting. We waited for a long time for Fatima, but in the end, we had to leave the airport, leaving just one bodyguard behind. We returned home empty-handed. People stared at us with curiosity, likely surprised that we weren't returning with our daughter. I sat in the living room, anxiously staring at the clock. 1 hour, then 2, passed. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. A maid went to open it. There stood Fatima. She wasn't wearing any lavish jewelry or carrying a designer handbag. Instead, she wore simple jeans and a plain white t-shirt, pulling a single small suitcase behind her. I'm home, Mom, Dad, Fatima greeted us politely, then took off her shoes and placed them neatly in a corner of the entryway. A maid moved to help with her suitcase, but Fatima shook her head. It's okay, I've got it. In that moment, I couldn't tell if I was dreaming. The Fatima I knew before would never even carry her own purse. She walked into the living room naturally and sat down across from us. How was your time in America, dear? I asked, my voice trembling slightly. Fatima broke into a wide, genuine smile. It was a pure smile, free of any agenda or pretense. It was amazing. I learned so much, it's hard to even put into words. I studied my daughter's face. No makeup, her hair pulled back neatly. Most importantly, her eyes had changed. The arrogance and entitlement that once defined them were gone. So, how was the metro? My husband asked. Very convenient, Dad. It only took 30 minutes to get into the city from the airport, and I got to see the view along the way. She paused for a moment, then smiled. Most importantly, I proved to myself that I can do things on my own. I do. Was this really the same spoiled princess who had left for the United States 3 years ago? That night, I couldn't sleep, consumed by the mystery of Fatima's transformation. I still remember the day she decided to go to America so clearly. Let me start from there. Fatima was a true Qatari heiress. She was treated like royalty from the moment she was born, growing up with a legion of staff catering to her every whim. Every desire was met instantly. Having grown up in a similar environment myself, I saw this as normal. Fatima learned early on to never make direct eye contact with the staff. When speaking to a maid, she would tilt her chin up slightly, her gaze fixed somewhere in the distance, using commands instead of conversation. She wouldn't say, "May I have some water, please?" but simply, "Water," and someone would rush to bring it to her. This was the norm in our household. One day, Fatima became obsessed with an American pop star, Taylor Swift, and the band The Killers. Her room, once a sanctuary of quiet luxury, was now constantly filled with their music. After plastering her walls with their posters, she announced she was going to perfect her American English. At first, I dismissed it as a fleeting teenage fancy, but the situation escalated. It was at her lavish 16th birthday party. We had booked the most luxurious hotel in Doha, throwing a grand celebration and inviting friends, relatives, and even members of the royal family. Everything was perfect. As the party was in full swing, Fatima came and whispered in my ear, "Mom, can you get the Killers to play here? It's my birthday." I was stunned. Invite one of the biggest bands in the world as if you were ordering a pizza? Fatima, that's impossible. They're incredibly busy people. Her face twisted in frustration. Why? Is it about the money? Just tell Dad. Pay them in dollars and it's done, right? I was speechless. In that moment, I was horrified to realize how my daughter saw the world. In Fatima's eyes, everything could be solved with money, and everyone was just someone who could be hired. That night, after the party, my husband and I had a serious talk. "Honey, did you see how our daughter treats people? She acts as if everyone was born to serve her." My husband stared silently out the window for a long time before speaking. "Remember that man I met on my business trip to Seattle? The CEO of that tech company? He ate in the same cafeteria as his employees. He used his own mug to get water from the cooler." He paused. "And most impressively, his son took the public bus to school." That night, we decided to send Fatima to study abroad in America. The goal wasn't academic, it was for her to learn how to live like an ordinary person. Of course, Fatima protested fiercely, crying that she didn't want to leave her friends and asking why we had to send her so far away, all alone. When she saw we were adamant, she played her final card. "Will I get to see Taylor Swift in America?" I suppressed a laugh. "Who knows? It's a big country, but if you're lucky, maybe you will." And so, Fatima left for the United States. 3 years later, she returned a completely new person. The first few months after Fatima left were quiet. Every time I walked past her empty room, my heart ached. Our phone calls were short and cold. When I asked about her new friends or school life, she would just reply with a curt, "It's fine." I began to doubt if sending her to America was the right decision. I decided to contact her host family in Portland, Oregon, and received a simple reply. "She's quiet, but she's adjusting well." My husband comforted me, saying she just needed time. Then one day, the private security guard I had hired, unbeknownst to Fatima, of course, I'd only asked him to watch from a distance, sent me a photo. When I saw it, I gasped. In the picture, Fatima was wearing regular clothes, standing in line in her high school cafeteria. She stood at a normal distance from the person in front of her, waiting patiently. Most importantly, she was smiling, a real, unforced smile. Next to her, an American friend was chatting animatedly with her. I showed the photo to my husband. He stared at it in amazement, then smiled. "She's changing." After that, more photos came. Fatima giving up her seat on the Max light rail for an elderly woman, buying a soda at a convenience store and sharing it with a friend. Even picking up a piece of trash from the sidewalk and putting it in a bin. Every action looked natural, not because someone had ordered her to do it, but because she wanted to. 6 months later, during a video call, I witnessed something astounding. She was practicing for the school's debate team. The old Fatima would never have risked making a mistake in front of others. She was a child who wouldn't even try something if she couldn't be perfect at it. But the Fatima on the screen, even when she stumbled over her words, just smiled and started again. "Isn't it embarrassing to make mistakes?" I asked her. Fatima's answer was simple. "In America, making mistakes is just proof that you're trying. Nobody treats me like a princess here. At first, I was angry and hurt, but now, it's actually a relief." A year passed, then 2. We only saw our daughter through a screen. Fatima didn't even come home for holidays, saying she was going on trips with her friends or spending time with her host family. While it pained me, it was also proof that she had adapted well to her new world. 3 years went by. Finally, we got the news that Fatima was coming home to attend university in Qatar, and that brought us to today, the day she refused a limousine at the airport and said she would take the metro home. At dinner, Fatima sat down at her chair naturally. When a maid served her food, she nodded slightly and said, "Thank you." Seeing my surprised expression, Fatima just shrugged. "It's normal in America. You thank the person who prepared your food for their effort." End of quote. That night, I asked my husband, "Did we do the right thing?" He looked out at the night sky and replied, "I don't know yet, but a change has definitely begun." The next morning, I woke up early and went down to the kitchen. Fatima was already there, making coffee. The espresso machine in our house is an expensive, complicated Italian model with numerous buttons and dials, but Fatima was operating it with ease. "You're up early. What are you doing?" I asked. Fatima smiled broadly. "Oh, good morning, Mom. Would you like some tea?" I got used to drinking hot tea like this every morning in Portland. I observed my daughter carefully. Her hair was tied back, her face was fresh, and she was wearing comfortable loungewear. The old Fatima would have put on a full face of makeup and designer clothes the moment she woke up. Fatima brought 2 cups of chamomile tea out to the terrace. We sat side by side, soaking in the morning sun and sipping our tea. It was the first truly peaceful moment I'd had with my daughter in a very long time. "What was life really like in America?" I asked her. Fatima thought for a moment before she began. "At first, everything was completely different. A small room, a hard bed, taking the light rail to school early every morning. But slowly, I got used to it." End 40. Fatima told me how she was inspired seeing other students give up their seats on the train for the elderly, and how she admired that people around her saw it as a normal act of kindness. Soon, she started doing it herself, naturally. She confessed that for the first few months, she cried every single day. Being treated like just another student, without any special privileges, had wounded her pride. Her host family treated her like a member of their family, nothing more. She was shocked when they told her she had to do her own laundry. "So how did you wash your clothes?" I asked. Fatima said that at first she refused, but she had no choice. She was inspired when she saw Emily, the host family's daughter, doing her own chores without complaint, even though her father was a successful executive. "A person's worth isn't measured by how many people serve them," Fatima said, "but by how well you can live in harmony with those around you." Hearing this, I was deeply moved. My daughter seemed to have learned something in America that we had failed to teach her. When I asked about school, Fatima said the language barrier was tough at first, but it got better. She started learning basic things, like waiting in line for lunch. Her American friends just saw these things as normal. Fatima smiled and told me a little story. Once, she had said to an American classmate, "You don't want me to remember your face," as a form of threat. Everyone just stared at her strangely. Emily later told her that it was a rude and aggressive thing to say. "Respecting each other is just the American way," she had explained. I laughed along with her. The old Fatima would have been furious at being corrected like that, but now she recounted it as an amusing memory. "What do you want to do today?" I asked. Fatima said she wanted to walk around downtown Doha. In Portland, she walked everywhere and wanted to try using public transport here too. Our family always used chauffeured cars. Her answer surprised me. I started to call for the driver, but Fatima shook her head. "No, Mom, I want to walk. That's the only way to truly experience a city." In the end, I decided to go along with Fatima's idea. My husband said he would join us. It was the first time in over a decade that our family had gone out without a driver. The morning air in Doha was hot and humid, but Fatima didn't seem to mind. The summers in Portland could get pretty hot and sticky too. This is nothing. As we walked the streets of Doha, Fatima seemed to see everything with new eyes. The street-side shops, the people passing by, even the tiles on the pavement. She would occasionally stop to take a picture. This behavior was so foreign to me. The old Fatima barely noticed her surroundings. After about an hour of walking, Fatima pointed to a small coffee shop. It was a simple, local place, a world away from the luxurious restaurants our family frequented. My husband looked hesitant, but he followed Fatima's lead. Inside the cafe, many eyes turned to us. It was rare to see Qatari elite in a place like this. Fatima was unfazed. She ordered 3 cups of Arabic coffee herself. Before, we would have always ordered for her. Her natural confidence surprised me. "In America, you have to do everything yourself," she explained. "From ordering food to paying, sometimes even clearing your own table." While drinking coffee, we talked about the changes in Qatar, the new buildings in Doha, the developments after the World Cup, news about our family. During the conversation, Fatima talked about the concept of community, the bonds and mutual support between people. She gave an example of how her host mother would always bake her favorite cookies just to cheer her up. My husband asked, "Isn't that similar to our Arab tradition of hospitality?" Fatima pointed out the difference. "We do that for guests or people of higher status, but in America, they do it for everyone. The bus driver, the clerk at the convenience store, the janitor at school." Fatima's words made me think. It was true. In our home, the staff were practically invisible. Fatima's change wasn't just external. Her entire worldview had shifted. Leaving the coffee shop, we headed to Doha's traditional souk. There, Fatima chatted and haggled with the merchants. I never thought I would see my daughter act this way. The old Fatima wouldn't have even asked for a price before buying something. In fact, she would never have even come to a place like this. While exploring the market, Fatima stopped for a particularly long time at a small artisan craft stall. It was a shop selling traditional Qatari jewelry. The way Fatima spoke to the owner was incredible. The old Fatima wouldn't just refuse to speak to a merchant, she wouldn't even make eye contact. "This necklace is so beautiful. Did you make it yourself, ma'am?" Fatima asked the shop owner. The owner looked surprised, but then broke into a wide smile and began to explain her work. Watching their conversation, I was once again amazed at my daughter's transformation. Fatima was listening intently and sincerely to the shop owner's story. In the end, Fatima bought the necklace. But what was surprising wasn't the haggling, it was the gratitude she expressed to the owner. "This is exquisite work. Thank you so much." Watching that scene, I had a revelation. The meaning of being human, which we had so desperately wanted to teach Fatima, was naturally woven into the daily life of ordinary Americans. Fatima hadn't learned it from a special course or a lecture. She learned how to live like a normal person simply by living among them. On the way home, Fatima suggested, "Tomorrow, let's take the metro together." My husband and I looked at each other and nodded with a smile. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in a long while. My daughter had changed, but I had a feeling this change would bring good things to our family as well. Just as Fatima had spoken of community, it made me start to think about how I could place more importance on my relationships with people. The next morning, we went to the metro station as planned. My husband seemed a little anxious, but seeing Fatima's confident demeanor, he appeared to relax. To be honest, I was excited too. It was my first time using public transportation after a lifetime of limousines and luxury cars. "We need to buy tickets here first," Fatima said, leading us to an automated kiosk. She expertly tapped the screen, selecting our destination and paying. She looked so natural, as if she had been doing this her whole life. When we reached the platform, people from all walks of life were gathered together: laborers, students, and ordinary citizens, all sharing the same space. This site was quite new to us. Our family had always existed in segregated spaces, separate from other social classes. When the train arrived, Fatima led us on board. Even though it was crowded, she wasn't flustered. After we found seats, she said, "The trains in Portland are way more complicated. During rush hour, it's so packed you can't even find a place to stand." In that space, surrounded by people, I saw Doha from a new perspective. Sights I had never seen, sounds I had never heard, feelings I had never felt. Everything was new. "It's kind of fun, right?" Fatima asked. "Everyone in the same space, sharing the same experience. Americans call this a sense of community." My husband nodded. "It's true. It's a completely different feeling." We took the metro to a mall in Doha and decided to have lunch at a regular restaurant. Not a fancy one, but a popular spot for locals. Fatima chose the menu and ordered the food herself. When the food arrived, she said softly, "Let's eat." In America, she explained, it's common to say something before a meal to show gratitude to the chef and the ingredients. After we finished, Fatima said, "Thank you for the meal," and tidied our table a little. I found this incredibly novel. We had never done anything like that in our home. While walking through the mall, Fatima told me about all the things she had learned in America, from life skills to interpersonal skills. What impressed me most was what she said about empathy. "Americans are really good at reading each other's feelings," she said. At first, I found it annoying, but then I realized it's a form of consideration. It's a way to make sure others don't feel uncomfortable, so everyone can coexist peacefully. On the way home that evening, Fatima said quietly, "To be honest, when I first got to America, I was miserable." Her voice was filled with sincerity. Everything was strange. No one gave me special treatment. The first month, I cried myself to sleep every night. I wanted to come home. I was surprised. "Why didn't you tell us?" Fatima gave a small smile. "Because if I did, you would have brought me back." But as time went on, things slowly changed. Having my own space and time, it started to feel like freedom. I wasn't living as someone's daughter or as a member of a certain family. I was living as just Fatima. Hearing this, my heart ached. I only now realized what a burden our family's name and status had been for her. We had wanted to raise our daughter to be special, but in doing so, we had made her isolated. When we got home, I asked her, "Do you miss America now?" Fatima thought for a moment, then nodded. "I do, but I think that no matter where I am, I can use what I learned there." That night, my husband and I had a deep conversation about whether the environment we had provided for Fatima was the right one. So many thoughts ran through my mind. Strangely, my husband was thinking the same thing. What Fatima had learned in America wasn't just about manners or independence, it was about human connection, about how to live together in a society. Late into the night, we talked about Fatima's transformation and our own way of life, the way we had lived, the way we treated those around us, and most importantly, what was truly essential in our relationships with others. The next morning, Fatima made an unexpected proposal. "Dad, Mom, this weekend, would you like to do some volunteer work with me?" At first, I didn't understand what she meant. Volunteer work? Our family makes substantial donations. We've never personally spent our time on volunteer activities. "What kind of volunteer work?" my husband asked. "At a community support center on the outskirts of Doha, we can help serve food. I used to do it a lot with my friends in America." He hesitated. The idea of meeting volunteers face-to-face and doing service work was something I had never considered, but seeing the earnest look on Fatima's face, it was hard to refuse. "Let's give it a try," my husband said, winking at me. So, we decided to volunteer that weekend. Fatima handled all the preparations, contacting the center to schedule a time and asking what we could do to help. She seemed so mature. When the weekend arrived, we dressed differently than usual, not in luxury clothes or jewelry, but in simple, comfortable attire. On the way to the support center, I still felt uneasy. This was a first for me. When we arrived, the volunteer coordinator greeted us warmly. He seemed surprised when he recognized who we were, but Fatima spoke to him naturally. "I did a lot of volunteer work in America, so I brought my parents along. What can we do to help?" The coordinator asked us to help prepare and distribute food. We put on aprons and entered the kitchen. My husband and I felt incredibly awkward, but Fatima moved with practiced ease, carrying food, plating dishes, and even washing pans. Surprisingly, as time went on, my husband and I slowly fell into the rhythm of the work. At first, it felt strange and uncomfortable, but we began to feel the value of the work. The smiles of the people who received the food we prepared and their words of thanks struck me deeply. On the way home after the volunteer session, we were all enveloped in a strange feeling. We were tired, but at the same time, we felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It was a first for all of us. "So, what did you think?" Fatima asked. My husband thought for a moment. It was better than I expected. It was awkward since it was my first time, but it started to feel natural. I nodded in agreement. "You said you did this often in America, right? What was it like then?" Fatima's eyes lit up. "At first, my school made us do it, but after a while, I started to enjoy it. The most important thing was that it didn't matter who my parents were or how much money I had. I was just one person helping another. That feeling, it was incredible." That night, I thought long and hard. For the first time in a long while, what was the value we had pursued our entire lives? Amidst all the privilege and wealth, what had we lost? Fatima seemed to have found those things in America. Time flew by. Before we knew it, Fatima had been home for 2 weeks. Although it was almost time for university to start, Fatima said she would rather go back to a university in Portland than one in Qatar. At first, we were against it, but now we decided to respect her choice. Today was Fatima's birthday. In the past, we would have thrown a lavish party and invited hundreds of people. But Fatima said she wanted a simple celebration with just the family, and she asked for an unexpected gift. "For my birthday gift, can I ask for something special?" "Of course, anything," I replied. "I want to cook dinner for the family myself, using the recipes I learned in America." I was so surprised I couldn't speak. Our family always had a professional chef prepare our meals. The idea of Fatima cooking in the kitchen was unthinkable. "Are you sure? We can have the chef help you." Fatima shook her head. "I really want to do it myself. I learned a little bit about cooking from my host mom in America." And so, Fatima took over the kitchen. The staff tried to help, but Fatima insisted on doing most of it herself. Although I felt uneasy, seeing her confident manner, I decided to wait. By evening, the dining table was filled with meticulously prepared dishes: a perfectly roasted chicken, creamy mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and various side dishes. It was all Fatima's work. "Happy birthday, Fatima," my husband said, raising his glass. "Fatima biemt. Thanks, Dad." We began to taste the food Fatima had prepared. To be honest, it couldn't compare to the skills of a professional chef. Some dishes were a little too salty, but strangely, it tasted better than any gourmet meal I'd ever had, because it was a meal my daughter had poured her heart into making for us. "How is it?" Fatima asked nervously. "It's delicious, sweetie," I answered honestly. After dinner, It was time for cake. Suddenly, Fatima spoke quietly. Actually, there's something else I want to talk about. We looked at her expectantly. After I go back to America, I want to keep volunteering at the support center. And in the future, I'd like to make that my career. My husband's face went rigid. For someone in our family to pursue such a career was unimaginable. But seeing the serious look in Fatima's eyes, I knew this wasn't just a whim. Why would you want to do that kind of work? My husband asked. Fatima thought for a moment. Living in America, I realized something. The privileges I have are not things I earned through my own efforts. It was just the good fortune of being born into this family. I think it's my duty to use that privilege to help others. I was profoundly moved by her words. That my young daughter could have such deep thoughts was both surprising and a source of immense pride. Do whatever you want to do, my husband said finally. We will respect your decision. Tears welled up in Fatima's eyes. Thank you, Mom, Dad. I know most people wouldn't understand. That night, for the first time in a long time, I felt a deep sense of peace. Sending Fatima to America was certainly not a mistake. In fact, that decision had allowed Fatima to grow into a true human being. Fatima was no longer a princess. She was just a person finding her own path, and a wonderful one at that. I realized then that true privilege isn't money or status, but the feeling of connection with others and the belief that you can contribute something good to the world. America had taught our daughter what it means to be human, and in doing so, it had brought a new beginning to our entire family. And now, I wanted to be a part of that journey too. Perhaps I too could learn to live a more human life, just like Fatima.